All right. I guess we'll get started. So, I've never done a podcast before, so I don't even know if I want to do podcasts, but Aaron and I were kind of debating this. So, I was like, you know what? Let's make a podcast out of this. Because I was talking to James and I was like, James, we should do a podcast because James and I have some real good conversations. So here we are. So, I'll just say, welcome to the podcast. The podcast, right? How about that? And so
That
today
works.
we have James Machiavelli in the house. Check out his music on Instagram and on Spotify. We have Jim Choma, who is a graphics design master. And we have my dear friends, Aaron and Julia. And you can check them out on Instagram as well. What's your Instagram right now, Aaron?
It's Mind Quill.
Mind Quill.
Mind Quill, like Dave Quill, but for the mind.
Right, for sure. And Julia, yours is very toasty, like Princess Fairy underscore toasty.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So we wanted to debate, Aaron and I, we got into sort of like a pre-debate, and then I put the brakes on it because I was like, you know what, this is too good. We gotta do this for real as like a real debate. And the debate is, I guess we'll say the topic is AI art real art? And I know that's a very like general, I'm using very general terms there, but is AI art real art? So I guess you guys are arguing that it is real art, and or I don't want to say what your argument is, but I'll turn it over to Jim and Aaron and Julia, and you guys can go first. How's that sound?
Jim, you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Why don't you give us an introduction about what you do as well?
I have a Bachelor of Art. I have a Bachelor of Fine Art. I've been developing websites for the last 25 years. I'm a trained artist and painter, and I'm a graphic designer and a web designer. So that's what I've been doing, honing my skills. And I think that it's an interesting question. And I think that if you want the short answer is yes, AI is art. And I always say that because art for centuries and will continue to go on for centuries be in the eye of the beholder. So anybody that knows fine art knows about 10 years ago, maybe less, the guy duct taped a banana to a piece of wood and hung it up in a gallery. So duct tape banana to a piece of wood, hung it up in a gallery, right? Or it might have been like a duct tape on the rim of a toilet. But anyway, people had the debate then. Is this art? Is abstract art, right? Is abstract art art? And like I said, if you like it, then it's art, right? So I have a Wolverine shirt on, right? Is that art? Of course it's art. It was drawn by a comic book. I forgot who drew that. It's not Jim Lee, it's the other guy. However, the long answer is the question shouldn't be, is AI art? The question should be, the people that create AI, are they artists, right? Are they artists themselves, or are they just keyboard people just typing in stuff? And if you can type in stuff and make art, does that make it art? Like I said, the short answer is yes. The long answer is, well, it's a little bit more complicated now, isn't it?
Right. I think some great points. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Oh, no, I was just saying, cool. I want to hear Aaron and Julia, and I definitely have a take. But yeah, that was a good take.
Yeah. So, as for myself, I've actually never been a visual artist in any way in my life. Never drawn anything really. I started messing around with the AI stuff like maybe 3-4 weeks ago. Really like starting to learn how to do what I wanted to do. But you know, if you can paint with words, so to speak, with AI, then uh, it's funny because I've always been good with language and words, and it puts me in a position where I can, you know, really elaborate on what I wanted to see or what I wanted to do, and I might be able to produce something better with AI than a really talented visual artist that doesn't know how to articulate what they want.
All right. So, my
Julia, you want to say something?
yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I've always just drawn since I was a kid, and all my friends and family like my art. I do like paintings, drawings, but I kind of look at it as I always need something for inspiration. Like I look at something or gather on my Pinterest, I put a bunch of stuff and draw it manually. And instead of doing that with AI, I just use it as like my tool and feed it my ideas from in that same way. So I kind of view it just as like another way to make art. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not art. I think it's a tool, and I think most of the art that comes from AI is like functional, like whether it be like I think it's useful as far as like the grunt work. Like artists, I think now like most true artists that have like a creative inspiration, they find these jobs that I think capitalism forced them in. But I think now that AI comes, AI gets to take those jobs, and I don't think those jobs are really art in the first place. Like the mundane work of like making a logo or like repetitive pictures. I think true art comes from human inspiration and intention. So with that said, I think most of the AI art lies under like this, I guess lower, it's a form of art, but I wouldn't say it's like true art as far as like what human produced, as far as like intuition, narrative, stuff like that.
What I think James and Julia bring up a good point is, okay, if I use DALL-E or Midjourney and I type in soda can with sunglasses on a surfboard riding a wave, and it spits it out. It's a funny image, and I stick it up on my Instagram. I don't do anything to it. I just take it right from Midjourney to my Instagram and say, look. And then I say, this is done by AI, but it's a funny image that I wanted to share. Now, James brings up a point that, okay, if you use it as a tool, like a pencil or a piece of paper, or a sculptor would use it as a tool. So, James, let me ask you this. There was a bit of controversy a couple months ago with the movie Civil War, and they made variant posters that were created in AI. Now, it wasn't created all at once, right, with the prompts, right? So it's not like what Aaron was saying, like, hey, I know how to use the prompts and it'll spit out this image. What they did was they wanted to show helicopters in the air, sandstorm, military style Hummers, and tanks. So they went into AI and said, give me, a military style helicopter. Spits that out. So it spits the pieces out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you piece that together in Photoshop, put all the filters on it, make it color graded correctly. Whoops. And then you say, okay, this is now my art. James, let me ask you this. Is that better than what Aaron was saying about just using prompts? Do you think that's more of using it as a tool?
I kind of when Aaron says she uses it as a prompt, can you give me the comparison again? I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you saying is one better than the other, or what?
So if I use the prompts to create the pieces,
Yeah,
a helicopter, a military Hummer, I can't find these in stock photo, right? So I go to AI and I go, you create it for me.
Yeah.
So it creates the military Hummer for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't just take that military Hummer, stick the word Civil War on it and go, look, it's a movie poster.
Mm-hmm.
I get the Hummer, I get the helicopter, I get the sandstorm, I get the desert, and I piece all those together in Photoshop to create a composite work of our movie poster. Now, all the pieces were made in AI, but I had to use my Photoshop skills to put it all together.
Yeah.
I also had to use my imagination to make a composition of that. I'm just not spitting something out. I'm using it as a tool to create something else.
Yeah. I'll consider, of course, again, I'll consider that art, but it's the context of which you're making the art. It's for a company. It's like, I'll take a step backwards and ask that artist that made that prompt, like, is this the art that you would like to make? Like, is this the art that if you didn't have nothing attached to it, you're just inspired and you wanted to communicate? I think with the scenario you pictured right there is like, yeah, I think it's a useful tool, but I think the production at the end, I'm not giving it like the art, like I'm lost for words, but it's just not art as far as that guy. I think it's a job. That I think is like grunt work.
All right. Yeah, one more point, and then I'll shut up for a little bit. I was saying before the podcast started that I've been around long enough that I remember when artists said Photoshop is going to destroy art as we know it. Let me give you a quick example. You guys are too young to remember, but back in the 70s and the 80s, there was a movie poster artist called Drew Struzan. And Drew Struzan is an amazing artist, and you've seen his art. And if you look it up, you'll know who I'm talking about. He created posters for Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, Goonies. These are Star Wars. These are classically drawn. He used airbrush, colored pencil, a little bit of watercolor, and he just drew all these things because we didn't have Photoshop back then, right? Mm-hmm. So if you wanted a movie poster, you had to either still photography it or hire an actual artist, right? And I bring this up, James, because once Photoshop came out, Drew Struzan was out of a job. Okay? No, that's it. Sorry, Drew. We're just hiring Photoshop artists.
I think that's a good thing. Like, I'm starting to think, did Drew go on and go like make the masterpiece that he always wanted? Or like people think like the story is like a sad that Drew got fired, but I think that liberated Drew. Like, if that makes sense. I think like
No, his passion was movie posters, and he was pretty old. He was retired. My point being is that artists like Drew, right, which wasn't just Drew, it was other artists as well, that wanted to do movie posters, grew up like I did, idolizing Drew Struzan and saying that's what I want to do for my life is make movie posters. Well, once Photoshop came along, there's no need for it anymore. So my point being is that if you're concerned about people losing jobs, this has been going on for a long, long time. Every new technology takes away from another person's job, right?
You know, I wanted to say something, James. I think you bring up a good point, and I would also, if I had to corner what is art, I would also say it's something that's made for no purpose other than for the pure enjoyment of it. Everything else, of course, you can, use art and marketing and ad placement and stuff like that, but it can be, I think, a mixed bag. But I wanted to show a short thing I made that Jim reminded me of a concept that I created on I'm trying to share my screen. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. And as you're pulling that up, I think Jim does make a very good point about the technology is always going to, whether we're talking about art or whether we're talking about something like rideshare apps, right? Like when the rideshare apps came out, people were saying, oh, well, that's not fair to the taxi drivers, right? But sure enough, even the taxi driver needs a ride to the airport once in a while. And now that the market has sort of settled, now that taxi driver can get a more accountable, let's say, market-priced ride to the airport. And he can, maybe at first he lost his job as a taxi driver, but he develops new skills, and then his productivity is allocated elsewhere in the economy to everyone's advantage, where he can be more productive, right? So in the case of art, that may not be like the outcome that I'm sorry, what was the artist's name who made the movie posters?
Drew Struzan.
Like the people that I question Jim, the people that grew up and wanted to like have a job like to draw for movie posters, is it like, did they want to draw specifically for like movie production and make these posters, or did they just want to have art and they figured out they can do this living through this means?
Well, you know what I mean? I don't want to age myself here, but I think everybody can tell by the gray beard that I'm a little bit older. I saw Star Wars in 1977 when I was 8 years old, and I've been in love with movies ever since.
Gotcha.
So I saw Close Encounters in the theater when I was 6. My dad was a big movie fan, and he took me to everything. So even the stuff that was inappropriate. So, but yeah, I've been obsessed with movies ever since. I've got you can't see the head, but this is a Darth Vader poster. It's a based on the old Nazi propaganda posters
Mhm.
that I did in Illustrator. So that was done without AI. And then over here we've got an Iron Man poster that was done in AI. So mine and the AI. And I worked on this AI just like Aaron does with his prompts, right? To get it correct, right? So you're like, oh, I want it to be this, I want it to be that. They keep changing until you get it right. And I thought, hey, that looks awesome. I'm gonna go down to Walgreens and spend $20 and get it printed out. So I did. So it can be appreciated, sure, but we do go back to the question: is it art? And I'll leave you with this. I mean, and I'll let you guys speak again, but imagine being a portrait artist, and you're at the height of your the peak of being a portrait artist, and then they invent the camera. I mean, I think you'd have a big problem with cameras, right? And now, of course, we look at photographs and say, of course they're art. Why would it be art? But back then they were like, no, that's not art. I'm creating art. I'm a painter.
I'm going to jump in here actually because this is starting to the technological curve is essentially what like underpins the basis of my argument, which I'll bring in here, which is like, you know, at a certain point, the question becomes like, surely anything could be art because it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I think we can all agree on that. That's a very agreeable place to start. But can everything be art in the same sense at the same time, right? So, you know, going back to what was it, like the banana nailed to the wall or the banana peel? I forget, right? And
The banana duct tape.
a duck. Oh, excuse me, right? Yeah. See, I'm not an art. I would have used the nails, but see, shows how little I know about art. But the question is like, okay, well, if there's a certain point where it's like, art, is that really art, or is that an activist statement that anything could be art, right? And if it's more of an activist statement, well, anything could be art. I'll say, well, sure, but if you want to say everything is always art, well, then that's the same as saying, well, nothing is ever art, because in both cases, it's an unfalsifiable argument, right? And so if someone's trying to duct tape a banana peel to try to make some philosophical argument that, well, everything is always art if I say it's art, or in my opinion it's art, well, then I can say, well, now you're sort of leaving the domain of art to try to make that activist point, to make that argument, and you're sort of entering the domain of philosophy. And in that domain, I can say, well, I can just say that nothing is ever art. And so to that point, and then we'll look at Aaron's art in a second here. But to that point, I think there is a valid concern about a question of like, well, at what point, and this goes to Jim's original point, which I thought was very interesting, which is like, the short answer is yes, AI art is art. But is everyone who makes AI graphics an artist just because they write prompts? Because the question then is, you know, well, maybe the person who coded the AI is the artist, and the person writing the prompts is a person who's writing prompts. And hopefully they're having fun. Hopefully that's inspiring to them, and that's all great. And you know, hopefully they enjoy the finished product and they enjoy the process. But you know, if I play a NFL Madden video game, am I an athlete? Because who are you to say that that's not sports? I mean, I am moving my thumbs, right? So, and I am better at it than actually I've never played it, but
you're a football artist.
I'd be good at it. So, am I an athlete?
No, why
Like,
they
who are
do.
you
Well,
to say I'm not?
they do call them, you know, what they call them, electronic athletes, or what do they call the video game people? There's a word for it. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I would like the question: the people that use AI as art, 9 out of 10, what are they using it for? Because in my mind, I can't picture, besides just a functional use of like copy paste or like a pattern. I can't picture like an artist trying to build something new with AI.
I'll tell you. So 90% of the time, they're making their AI girlfriends. The other 10%, they're making what I consider real art, which is Well, I wanted to say, Jim, but you mentioned about like piecing together things that you made in AI. I wanted to show something
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did that it's like it's a great point you bring up that give me
You
one
gotta share your
second.
screen.
That,
Share your screen.
yeah, that
It's pretty sick, man.
Yeah, and Aaron, when I went to your page, to check it out, what I noticed was that even though you are saying, "Hey, I'm not an artist. I don't draw. I don't do this. I don't do that," I could see that you have it's funny because you have an AI style, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's a style.
Yeah.
And you're very consistent with your style, right? Now, is that style stolen? Technically, yes, but here's the crutch of it. All art is stolen. All music is stolen. None of it's original. You would have to grow up in a cave and never see a piece of art ever, and then draw on the cave wall. That would be the only true art. You would have to be deaf and never hear music and then write music on your own without ever hearing it to be a true musician. The rest of us were influenced our entire lives.
Yeah, this is a trip, Aaron. Your art's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I hate to push back
Yeah.
a little bit, but yeah, I don't like how you say he developed a style, but it's like I question how, like, for me, some art moves culture. I don't know if that's like a just talking out my head. Like, it's like an impact. Like certain art stick around. Like it's certain art I could Google from like the 80s or the 19th century that's like it still has an impact or still moves my soul or whatever. I will argue this type of new style would it have that same effect or same weight as the original art or whatever?
I can trick just about anyone with AI.
Okay.
Because if you want to trick somebody with AI, you don't do what Aaron is doing, right? So this is incredibly stylized, incredibly detailed. It would take a human being hundreds of hours to create what Aaron is showing us on screen. However, if I decide that I want to go into AI and say, hey, do an ink drawing of Spider-Man, right? Now it's not that good yet, but I did one on the Terminator. And I put in my post, this is done in AI. And the people that didn't see that thought that I drew it because AI was drawing it as an ink drawing, right? So some AI, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's AI. That's totally AI. And other AI, you're like, you could be fooled pretty easily. Like, look at Aaron, that's the one right there. The one the glove wearing the eyeball, holding the eyeball. That to me looks like it could be done, very easily by an artist. Oh yeah, oh look at that. So Aaron, that's AI.
I think he's actually is that AI?
Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. With that last one that you showed, was that AI?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how to talk while I share.
It looked like a marker drawing. Yeah, that one. Because that to me looks like it was done by a human.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't know the difference, and I think that was one of Aaron's original questions. Is he was referring to something called the Turing test, and I'm not super familiar with it, but I think it's like a question of whether or not a computer can trick a human into believing that the product was made by a human and not a computer. And like in this particular case, yeah, like I would be totally fooled. I would not think for a second that that is drawn by AI.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, this AI.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
But I agree
Sorry.
with
So,
James in a way though, because
can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that Julia drew by hand.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to figure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so I took this style basically. like this color palette and this kind of like whimsical
Nice
style,
job.
and I fed it to AI, and I got stuff that looks. I got
Oh, interesting.
stuff that looks like I got let me find it. Which one was it? 1 second. I got this, and it's the same color palette.
And that's the big concern with artists about AI is that some of them, like James, are worried that AI is going to take away their jobs.
No. But not to cut you off. I think AI takes away jobs, and I think that's a good thing. I think it takes away shit jobs that certain, but like I was in I was in advertisement, and we work with a digital. It's like a copywriter, and then it's like a digital grapher. I think like making propaganda for Target is not what the artists that's in that field want to do. I think they want to. Things. I think if you make a machine, if you leverage the machine to take out like logos and all this stuff for like companies, these real artists can make something to move the soul. That's my theory. So I think they will take away jobs, but in a good way.
Well, artists still need to make money and have health insurance,
and I'm at a point where I kind of like, I'm a little bit on the side. Is like, I hate when I have to put my art into commerce, and it's like, I haven't settled that myself, but I think just for the art itself, I think it's cool if the cream can rise to the top. And some people might not figure it out as far as the financial back end, but as far as the art itself, I think the cream will rise to the top. Like,
well, when the point that I was making about the artists was what artists are afraid of is like some of this art that Aaron is showing us right now, and a couple of them look like MC Escher, right? To me, MC Escher.
That's correct. I literally typed that in as an inspiration for these, and
there you go.
As an art historian, you would know that.
Yeah. So, my point being is that artists are afraid that AI is stealing their stuff and repurposing it, right? But again, I'm not going to throw this guy under the bus. It's a guy that I hate follow on Instagram. And his style is exactly like Patrick Nagel. And if you're familiar with Patrick Nagel, you know his style off the bat. If you're not, it's pretty much the girl decal on every nail salon, right? That's Patrick Nagel. And this guy does movie characters in the style of Patrick Nagel, and he's gotten hired by Disney, and he's incredibly successful. And I hate him for it because most people do not know who Patrick Nagel is. So he is not, in my opinion, any worse than Aaron. It's saying if Aaron wants to say, "Hey, I'm an artist," this guy says, "Hey, I'm an artist." Why? Because you're copying somebody else's style. That is incredibly. If you're around as long as I have been, is incredible. You know Patrick Nagel's style, and I get so pissed off at him. And I wrote in his comment section one day. I said, "Let me ask you something. What's the difference between you and you copying Patrick Nagel?" And he said, it's more of an homage. And I said, that's not it. That's not an homage. That's out and out stealing. Mm-hmm. You are stealing. It would be like if you decided to take Star Wars, shoot it shot for shot in your garage, and then put it out as the movie theater and claim, this is brand new. I came up with this myself. Like, no,
what about a Pink Floyd cover band? We all like to enjoy those. And they're
true, but they're not putting out original albums, right? Yeah. They're not claiming it's theirs.
It's an art in itself to just try to just make that sound happen. And I guess
it's not. That's not art.
It's not a new art. It's nothing that's never been done before. But I think is like playing a classical symphony perfectly is that art.
I think. No, I wouldn't consider it in particularly. It's people doing their jobs correctly.
You think it's the creation of something novel is what makes it art?
No, I think creating something original makes it art. Creating something original, that's yours. Whether or not it sucks or doesn't suck, doesn't matter. We've already determined art is in the eye of the beholder. So if I take if Jackson Pollock, for example, well, anybody could take paint and drip it onto a canvas and then call it art. Sure, but he was the first one to do it.
It's kind of like, was Kurt Cobain an artist at playing guitar? Like, he was sloppy and he did stuff wrong, but he had, that's what kind of created his own original sound. And I'm I'm a very kind of, I play guitar and I kind of think very technically, but I really can really appreciate a sloppy kind of wacky style like that.
Well, if you went to a restaurant and got served sloppy food, would you consider that art? Or would you
If it's a
send
sloppy film,
it? And to get back to my point about the artist, I watch Master Chef, I watch Hell's Kitchen, and Hell's Kitchen and Master Chef, they all talk to each other like chef, yes, chef, and then Gordon Ramsay says, okay, chefs, they call each other chefs, and it's like, okay, I just want to be called artist from now on. Like, and then Aaron, do you want to be called artist from now on? Like artist Aaron, Chef James, even though all I do is microwave stuff. Oh, I'm a chef now. Like it just, to me, you have to practice something. You have to hone something. You have to be good and unique. And then you can say, I'm producing art. Until then, you're just practicing.
Right. And to that point, I think that particularly in the case like you're describing where you take elements that are created with AI and then you use Photoshop and you integrate them into, and there's a certain manual aspect of it that does require skills that you've honed over time. To that effect, yeah, I would absolutely agree that that's art. I don't think that something having an AI element to it inherently disqualifies it as art, not inherently so. But I think there is a certain limit to that maybe AI isn't that line or that limit, but I think there is a certain point where enough of the processing of the skill is outsourced to the technology. And maybe it's the next step after AI. Maybe AI isn't quite at that level. It's not for me, it's not my place to draw the line and say, this is where it's no longer art and everything before this was art. Because as you point out,
yeah, that's my job.
Yeah. But as you point out, like, whether it was like with the film cameras or every technological innovation, there's always been people of the previous generation of art trying to disqualify something of the future as being inherently disqualified. But there does seem to be a point where if someone can leverage AI and do almost nothing and requires almost no skill at all, I can still look at that and say, oh, that's a cool graphic. You've designed a cool graphic in a sense, but is it useful at that point to call it art? And so from there, if anyone wants to respond to that, go ahead. But I want to pivot on that point to then sort of the direction of what could potentially happen to, let's call it like the fine arts or the arts that require skill and the incentives to develop those skills going into the future, right? Because if like I can tell right now, especially looking at Aaron's art right here, that a lot of this type of imagery is going to actually bid down the prices that people who have done manual, let's say with Photoshop graphic design, it's going to bid down what they can actually charge in the market to do like an album cover or a concert tour poster, or not necessarily the kind of art you would put into a museum, but let's just call it like the working artist's art, right? It's still creative it's a creative insight, and they've put it into a medium and it has a certain like appeal to it. It's also like for a concert tour or, like I said, an album cover, or there is a working element to it, and I would say that's still art. I don't think it has to be like purely something you only do as a labor of love to be art. I think it can be aligned with a market incentive to make a living, and it can still be considered art to a point, right? Obviously, there's going to be limits on that too. But what I'm trying to pivot to is this idea that like some of these that Aaron is showing right now, this will knock out, like some of the bottom rungs of the ladder of the skill sets of up and coming artists who are just using Photoshop, unless they adapt and use this technology, right? But it to that point, you know, what do you think the direction? What do you guys think the direction of art is going to be as the result of this? Are we going to completely move past sort of like the way of doing art manually? Maybe not this generation, but like over time. And where do you guys think this?
I think it's something first. I think that's why I say I think it's a good thing. Like example, you bring up like the banana and the duct tape. I'm pretty sure at a certain point artists get bored or wants to express themselves in a new, unknown way. And I think AI, if you like lean too much on this system that's built on learned patterns, you're not gonna get this humans come with like spontaneousness and like the intuition to come from the dark. And I think AI doesn't, it's if you limit yourself to this is art, then we're not going to get that next new thing. Like, you know, that's my take on that. So I think it's I think whoever figures out, we're going to have some dope shit. Like whoever figures out, now that AI took all the jobs they used to have, I think whoever figure out what's the new way to express yourself or the new fine art per se, I think it'll be a great thing.
But, you know, James, what if, you know, I showed someone a bunch of art and half of them were AI and half of them weren't, but they couldn't tell the difference. Then at that point, my argument is that at that point, you cannot distinguish one from the other as art or not art, even if it's impersonation, because like Jim said, all art is impersonation, but it's, you know, like kind of like musical styles, like a lot of new musical styles were created by just blending two separate musical styles, like you know, whatever, rock fusion, stuff like that.
Scenario, I'm not saying nothing wrong with the person that gets confused, like, oh, this is human or this AI. I'm just saying for the aspiring artists, now if they don't want to compete with AI, it's like you have to go a step beyond. Like, you know what I mean?
Someone who draws by hand or what?
Say it again.
Someone who draws by hand?
No, so like prior to the abstract art, people didn't think like, or it just, you could evolve it, something unknown. I wouldn't know what that is because it's like not known. Like I think
art is it in how you make? Is it in the making? You know, do you have to have drawn it by hand for it to be art? Is Photoshop art? Like at what? You know, a pen is a tool just like a prompt is. So
Aaron, I think the line there is, you know, is the activity you're doing art per se, or is it a simulation of art? That goes back to my point about playing the NFL Madden video game. Am I playing football? Who are you to say I'm not playing football because I'm sitting?
I want to say something about that. So you talked about making a political statement with art,
Activist
and
statement.
So I think that's where
an activist.
No, sorry. I mean, like you know, in the sense of office politics or whatever. Like, what I mean is that I think the banana on the toilet or wall or whatever, that's an anti-art statement. You know, so that's not in my opinion, that's not art. That's a you know, quote unquote within the artistic realm, a political statement to say, hey, let's move on past whatever traditional forms of art or whatever people concept of art was before by putting this banana on the wall. But, you know, I think that's where it becomes not art and it becomes more of a philosophy kind of statement or something like that.
Right. So
I think it's about the intention in the audience. Like he put that banana on the wall on a display in front of people, made a big show of it. He did it as an art performance as opposed to we just do it at home because you're having fun or something. It's a different idea, you know? Supply and demand of art. It's the only one in town. It's cooler to look at.
But
right now with AI, is big companies are running scared. They're no big company in 2024. I'm not saying that's not going to change, but no company in 2024 is going to go, Aaron, we stumbled upon your Instagram page. We really like your AI, and we want you to create AI for us. in this style that you have of your last 10, right? So I'm McDonald's and I go, I want a really trippy Happy Meal. And so I'm going to use Aaron's AI art, and put it plaster it on the Happy Meal. And it's all trippy and colorful and little kids love it. They're never going to do that because they are too scared of getting sued because Aaron's art is all it is an amalgamation of I can't pronounce that word, but it's a mashup of other artists, and those other artists can easily go to McDonald's and say, "You stole my stuff.
Yeah.
I'm suing you now." And then McDonald's going to say, "Well, it's not our fault. Aaron did it." And then they're going to go, "Aaron's a nobody. He doesn't have $10 million. Why would I go after Aaron? I'm going after you, McDonald's. You're the one who chose to use Aaron's work." So no company is going to go. That's not going to happen, right? So all these companies are very, very scared of AI right now. Just the way the actors were scared of AI. That was a big point during their strike, right? James Earl Jones died the other day. He sold his voice rights AI to Disney many, many years ago. And all the Darth Vader voices in the Obi-Wan series on Disney Plus, that was all AI James Earl Jones. So we have people selling their stuff, right? But Disney hired this Patrick Nagel guy. So I don't know where the line is, right? This guy that copies Patrick Nagel. I don't know. It would seem to me that Patrick Nagel's estate could go after Disney and say, "You copied my dad's work, or my uncle's work, or whomever owns that estate." So moving forward, we do have to worry about copyright laws because I've been busted many, many times for copyright laws in my long historic career in web design.
I think to me an important thing is just to me all it is it aesthetically pleasing or not? And I think that can be more. That doesn't have to be completely subjective. I think there's an objective standard for something that's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, that's the same thing as saying, art is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Well,
so I could hold up this Diet Mountain Dew can and say, "Is that aesthetically pleasing to you?" I would say, "Not to me. I think it's ugly, and I think it was made to grab people's attention." But I don't think that Diet Mountain Dew wants something that's aesthetically pleasing, right? So if it's soothing, why would I drink it?
Well, the thing is, though, like for example, the human eye, I believe it follows the Fibonacci sequence when it looks at an image. So it goes so art that has good movement, I guess, is that the correct term? Kind of almost in a spiral way, I've noticed, is always aesthetically, it's more aesthetically pleasing than if all those same elements were there and it wasn't arranged with that movement. So I think that's, for example, one objective metric you could look at. Also, things like precision. If you look at a really sloppy guitarist who just started yesterday and someone who's been playing their whole life, you can say, at some point you can say one guy can't play and he sucks and one guy's amazing.
Right. But Aaron, if I play Guitar Hero, the video game, am I a guitarist?
You're a guitar impersonator.
But where do you draw the line? See, that's I think the part.
Well, you could be a Guitar Hero artist if you're good enough at it, I suppose.
No, but I'm a guitarist, and I just have a novel way of I just have a novel choice of what guitar I like, right? Because the point I'm trying to make is that when you reduce it to a certain point, then it's just a simulation of the creative process. You're not actually in the creative process. And that's not to say that we've reached that point just yet, or that you've already exceeded that limit. It's not for me to say where the limit is. But I think unless we want to make the case that everything is always art in the same sense at the same time, I don't think that's a defensible argument, because then you could say nothing is ever art, and it would be the same level, the same burden of proof is met in either case. So there is a line somewhere, and it may not be relevant, because as long as people are having fun and as long as people are just, making cool things, then that's really what's important. But think about like kids who are just coming up right now, and they have no experience with music, no experience with art, like drawing their own art, like by hand, let's say, right? And they're just in like whatever grade of school, and the teacher just gives them a tablet, and then it's like, okay, now we're gonna do art. Here's a tablet. Tell the tablet what you want your art to look like, right? And I think it will reach at some point a complete void of creativity, where the process of creativity has been so simulated that it's entirely devoid, or it would seem no different than if there had never been any original creative thought in the first place. So it's easy for all of us. We all have some creative experience doing music, doing art, and it's easy for us to be like, well, if it's fun and you're having fun, that's cool. And of course, who am I to say this is not art? No one should do it this way. That's not my place to say it, but I can say that it'll be interesting to see if the activist artists that duct tape the banana peel to the wall will have anything to say about kids never learning anything about like coloring in one direction, right? So it has a consistent pattern, and instead kids are just being told to tell the tablet what the art is supposed to look like, right? So we'll see if the activist artists want to weigh in on that, or if they're. But in a way, I almost think that the activist artists have facilitated an outcome like this. Let's call it like the void of creativity, or like the singularity, where the creativity is so simulated by the machine process that it's indistinguishable from a lack of creativity in many cases. We'll see if I think their point was always an anti-art activism to begin with. That I'm sure in some cases there are artists who are capable of making textured oil paintings of like with the finest brush strokes, who wanted to do something novel just for the fun of it. But I think in general, it was always an activist statement against people who really honed their craft and sort of trying to call into question the validity of the mastery of the creative process. This is a trip right here.
I think at the end of the day, AI art is art until you learn that it's done in AI. Then you can no longer call it art. It must be called AI art. If something is produced in Photoshop and hung up in an art gallery, you have to put on the little sticker next to it that it was made in Photoshop, because that's now something different. That's now Photoshop art. I've worked in oils and acrylics. So when acrylics came along, people were like, that's not real paint. You must use oil. So now when you go to a gallery, it says acrylic on canvas, watercolor on paper, oil on canvas, mixed media. And then now we're in the realm of Photoshop art and AI art, right? So I think as long as you are truthful about your AI art, I think it's fine. But I do have a problem with the fact that it is stealing from other artists. Now that might be 1,000 other artists and then they just mash all together, but it's not like the AI engine is creating this stuff. Not yet, anyway. It's creating this stuff out of thin air. It's got to go into the internet and scour other people's art and then steal it and then mash it together.
Right. I hadn't even thought of it in that sort of way, but that's an interesting point. And I like what you're saying about the disclaimer with the acrylic versus the oil, and how that should. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, James.
That brings an interesting. That I was just showing this, and I told it to have the texture of an aged oil painting. Right, you can see the cracks there. So it's kind of. I told it to almost look like a real sort of faux real painting, if you will.
Yeah, last thing Jim said is kind of rang a lot of bells. It made a lot of sense, because it's like, if you were like the progression and when you like differentiate it and say this is that, but if you sell it as like I did this by myself and it's not, and it's indeed AI, I think that's when it's definitely is not art anymore. It's like plagiarism or like, yeah, I think it's the line. If that identifying it, I definitely solidified this as an art because when you compose it all, that is an act of like, you're not just doing like you could like even all the things you showed us. There was a vision you had, like you know what I mean, like how you said you have a style. So even if you're using like stuff that AI is generating, you still have a style to it. So I do see the merit of it being art, and I think I'm settled on if you don't, it got to be like branded as AI art, and it's like okay, yeah, I can enjoy it as such. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, and you could even drop the art and just say image, right? To not piss off any artist at all.
It's like
You're using AI, you're always going to piss off some artists. But if you say it's an AI image and not AI art, right?
Yeah.
So
the way
you call it an image.
like I'm I'm an art stylist or like a kind of like art curator, impersonator.
You could be an image stylist.
The thing is, like, if I can throw together Hieronymus Bosch and Salvador Dali and
Lisa Frank.
Lisa Frank, Alex Gray into one painting and tell it to be like a raccoon mobster, that's never been done before, and it might look amazing and it might be funny. And also, at what point is if it's funny? Because Jim, you make a lot of really funny stuff on your pages. A lot of really that stuff that made me really laugh. And is it art if it's for the purpose of comedy as well and not just for pure aesthetics? So it's like is it making a comedic statement and therefore it's not art?
I think that, and I when you were showing us your portfolio there, I could tell immediately which ones were the Dali ones. And I think that, like I said, we all enjoy the Pink Floyd, like you said, we all enjoy the Pink Floyd cover band, right? But it's not something that they're not going to sell out a stadium. They're not going to put out a platinum record by just repurposing Pink Floyd again and again and again. And it's the same thing in the art world. If I came out and my stuff was exactly like, and I go back to the Nagel thing, but let's go with Dali now. If all my stuff, all my original paintings on canvas looked exactly like Salvador Dali's stuff, I would never go anywhere as an artist. No gallery would put my stuff up because they would say, all you're doing is stealing from Salvador Dali. Now, I'm not copying him directly, but my style could be exactly like Salvador Dali. So I'm a different painting, but in the exact same style. And anybody that knows Dali would take a look at it and go, that's a copy of Salvador Dali. That's not art. I don't make the rules, saying they're the rules in the artwork.
Hey Jim, so would you say that so this is something that I made that was inspired by, the prompt was partially inspired by Salvador Dali, but there's kind of a technological component. So this just has like a dash of Salvador Dali. But
you could totally get away with that if I painted that. That could be hung up in a gallery for sure.
Yeah. Well, also another thing I wanted
not screaming down into me.
If I paint it, if I make it in AI and then I paint it by hand, does that immediately make it, a strictest artist? Does that make it suddenly definitely art if I draw it by hand? Is that all that?
No.
No, I think I'm on the argument. It's art. After this conversation, I mean, the act of prompt composer, I guess if you want to call it that, or like this whole composing using AI and like manipulating it, it is an art within itself. So yeah, I would look at that and you like, yo, is this art? Yes. But at the starting to the beginning of this conversation, I was just thinking like, it's just too limited to like just call this is the art. But yeah, I think if you show me that picture now after this conversation, it's like, yeah, that's art. And I'll after like what he was saying, like especially if you present it like, yo, this is my AI generated art, 100%. Like, yeah.
Here's the conundrum though. If I took that image that Aaron just showed, really cool image, and I took it and I put it in a projector and I projected it onto a canvas and I drew it, and then I painted it in acrylics, and then I brought it to the gallery and sold it for $24,000. If somebody found out that work was copied from AI, I would be on the front page of Google and Yahoo. Artist exposed as copying AI artwork.
Mhm.
and I will
Yeah,
be drummed out of society, never to be seen again.
yeah, because your art is at AI, it's not at art, if that makes sense. Like your art is prompt writing or like manipulating this image generator.
Yeah, and my point was just because it's paint canvas does not automatically make it art.
Yeah.
Right. So art in our world in 2024. And let me ask you guys this. Do you think that this is an age thing? Do you think this is old people not understanding new technology and how the young people are going to use this technology and they're just all old and don't understand it? Do you think there's an age element here?
Not necessarily, because I can see some young artists having the same strike as far as feeling like their stuff's getting plagiarized or their copyright stuff getting used without permission. I don't think it has an age barrier to that. Like I think young artists have the same stripe as you.
Like, do you think musicians who don't play an instrument but go on a computer and chop up, a bunch of samples or make, something like that, you know,
Now, if they
rap
present it as
and
AI, then yeah. But if they present it like, yo, this is my original work, then I think that's the issue. It's like if you come out and say I composed this through a generator, then yeah, I think that's the issue. I think.
But I mean, what if you like sampled a real song, um, as like the background beat for a new song you made, which is something that happens all the time, and we consider that original music.
That's like hip hop, brother. Like that's literally like the birth of hip
Right.
hop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I
there's
think
like
that
a way
I
that
think
you
that
the way that you make the collage, kind of.
I think that is an age thing because I follow somebody on Snapchat and they went to a Sabrina Carpenter concert and they were snapping it. And there she is, and she's up there, and she's got a microphone on, that's going through auto tune, probably got a secondary track going on. She's up there, she's dancing, she's singing just like Britney Spears used to do back in the day. But and just like Britney Spears and NSYNC and the rest of them, I don't see any musicians on stage. So for me, as an old guy that used to go to concerts all the time, right, to go see Kiss and the Jay Giles band and all these bands you guys have never heard of, is if I don't see musicians on a stage, I don't consider it a concert. I consider it a performance. You're performing for me, but it's not a concert. Concert to me has to have, and you have to have musicians. And so just like the AI artwork, as artists look at things, most of these artists are not Photoshop or graphic designers. They're classically trained artists that are painting, and they're of the position. If you don't have a pen, paper, paintbrush, canvas, it's not art. It's not art.
That I sympathize with that a lot, even though I do zero visual art. I do zero visual art, but I tend to lean in that direction, even though it's not for me to draw that line. I mean, so I would just put it back to Aaron. Where would you draw the line? Where does it no longer count as art, right? Because unless you want to say everything is always art, I don't think you would say that. But like, where would you draw the line, or is there a line?
Well, I think one of my favorite artists is Alex Gray, and he started as his whole career he was a professional human anatomy artist. So he has that obviously takes some of the most extreme technique you could imagine as a hand artist. So, but then he took that precision and technique and made something unique with it, but also has a lot of, you could look at it and you could see a lot of what he does going into an anatomy textbook still. So is he, I think it's sort of like how you have schools of music, classical music, you have schools of art, you had realism, whatever. Jim would know better about that, but yeah, basically there's different schools and different styles. Like when you're in art school, as I understand it throughout there's always been a dominant school. So at one point, I think it was like drawing things that are real. So you draw an apple that's sitting on your counter. Is that plagiarizing the apple?
But I'm saying I think the burden of proof shifts back to the burden of proof is always going to be on the people who are using the leading edge of technology, whether it's hip hop artists resampling old records, or whether it's resampling other visual art, to say, why does this still count, and why does
Well,
this?
I have my answer to that is that, in my opinion, like, what's the purpose of art or music? The ultimate purpose is, like, I take a good record home and I sit alone and listen to it and enjoy it. I take a piece of art home, hang it up on my wall. I look at it, at some point throughout the day, and like get a good feeling from it, and enjoy it aesthetically. So to me, if I can take something I made with AI and print it and frame it, and someone couldn't tell the difference, and they hung it up on their wall and they got that same enjoyment, that's all that really matters to me. Just the fact, I don't think the art is in the technique. I think the art is in the product and like the experience someone gets from consuming it.
I completely disagree with you. You could take your stuff and put it up on the wall and enjoy it for sure. Absolutely. I love that piece. It looks great. It was made by a prompt. I hang it up in my bathroom. I look at it. That's great. It brings me joy. Brings me joy. I think it's really cool. However, it's not art because it doesn't have a soul. Art is your soul.
That's what James was saying.
You look at a Pixar movie. That's got soul. That's art. You look at something that moves you. It was created by a human being out of their very soul. And that may sound corny to some people, but that's true art. True art can only be done by a human being. It can never be done by a machine. Machines can create great images. They cannot create a soul. They can, maybe we'll get to the point where it resembles one, but it's still not.
Just to add, I'm still on that, but what I did change is the question: the person using AI, is that an artist? And I'm starting to think, I think that's an artist. Like, I agree everything you just said, but now I'm questioning the person that's using the AI art. Is that an artist? You know what I mean? I think they're artists. I think I kind of give them the merit, but I stand 100% of what you just said as far as like impactful art and like the other stuff. But after this conversation, if I see AI art, I now don't just see a guy that copy and paste. It's like a guy that composed, or woman that composed to. It's like more than just copy and paste. You know what I mean?
Nice. All right, let's do some closing comments. I think we're getting close to that point anyway. But yeah, I mean, I agree that it's. I agree that it's art, James, like, in a sense, but I think that what Jim is saying about, like, it really hinges on the disclosure of to what extent just like the disclosure of acrylic as opposed to oil paintings, or like in the case, because I do DJing, like I'm not branding my performance as music that I made, right? I think of myself as a DJ as more of like a bartender who's mixing drinks, but I didn't make the alcohol. I'm just mixing it for like to serve it, basically. I'm serving the art, right? So I tend to think of, to the extent AI is art, it's art in the way that, like, it's the outer limit in the sense of like how the DJ that didn't produce the tracks and is just mixing other people's tracks. It's like you're serving art, but maybe you're not creating the art.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
That's my closing comment, but I'll send it to you, Aaron, because I know I'm sharply disagreeing with you.
I'll piggyback off of Brian for my closing statement. So I think that's a great way to put it. Actually, from now on, I'll think of myself as an art DJ. But it's kind of to me also another thing is it's kind of in the challenge. So what's the extreme limit of someone's skill, drawing with paint or acrylic, and to me the AI side of that is like how many completely unique images that have never been made before can you think of within 10 seconds? Like, it's kind of an exercise for your creativity, but also, you know, at one point, who is the best AI artist? In my opinion, it's the person with the best prompts, and that to me, that is just like it's just like poetry in a way. In fact, it is poetry because it's using language to describe something, and kind of the best AI artist to me is the best poet who can, or not necessarily poet, but the best kind of person who can best with words describe what the vision they have. And I think if you have the vision, that's what makes you an artist. And however you make that vision manifest is irrelevant to me. So that's my closing statement.
My closing statement is that AI art is art. I like it as a tool. I'll make as much art anywhere I can, a Sharpie, a pencil. It's just another way for me to create and have fun. So I think it's real art.
All right, Jim.
All right. Well, my closing statement is going back to the opening statement, which is art is in the eye of the beholder. However, we do live in a society that has rules. We live in a society where we have a certain communication. We have language. We have verbal language, and we need to be careful about throwing around the word artist. Right? We've compared digital art and classical art a lot on this show tonight to other things like a musician or mixing drinks, right? We don't call a person that mixes drinks the best mixer in the world. We don't call them a mix artist. We don't call them a drink artist. We call them a mixologist. We don't call a musician that plays a guitar well an art guitarist or a guitar artist. We call them a musician. When I look at this piece that I made right here, I don't call this art. I would never call that art. It's a cool image that I made. It's a graphic. That is graphic design. It is not art because there is a difference because I have a degree in both. Now, you may not like the rules and may push back on those rules. However, those are the rules that we have deemed as a society. And so what artists get upset about is when other people come up and try to steal what they have and say, I'm an artist too. I'm an artist as well. No, you're not, right? The 50-year-old mom that just figured out how to use Canva and sells decals on Etsy is not an artist, okay? She's somebody that's really good at making little graphics. She's not an artist. You can't hang that up in a gallery. Like I said, true art comes from the soul. That's my position. I'm sticking to it. Great talk with you guys tonight.
Very, very defensible position. I tend to agree. All right, James, I think you get a closing comment, right?
Nah, I think I did mine already, but I was kind of like, I'm gonna just piggyback off you. He kind of like, yeah, what he just said was very persuasive, but I'm more of like the DJ analogy, where it's like you're an artist in some form, but damn, that was a convincing last argument. So it's like I don't want to artist. It's like that artist, but in a sense, I see there's some type of art in this composition and this act of writing the right prompt, and like even the way he broke it down, as far as like he's seen it as poetry, as far as like me taking these words and the images coming out. But yeah, I'm kind of across, but I came in there saying that AI art is not art. And during the middle, I was questioning, is the people that generate this art, are they artists? And at the end of this conversation, I kind of tend to say that they are artists. Like, you know what I mean? Even though that was a great ass closing statement. But yeah, I think I'm on the side of that they might be artists. Unfortunately, Jim.
No, that's fine. And, just to wrap it up, for me is, James, that's great. And that's why I love having conversations like this, is because when we all go into it with a certain mindset, but keeping our mind open, it is a sign of intelligence to say, hey, I can now look at it the other way. You're ignorant if you come into something and say, nope, this is it. I'm not moving from this point, right? That's ignorance. Being smart is being open-minded and listening to people. And thank you all again for stimulating the conversation.
It was a dope conversation. You'll be up for the next one. Yeah, definitely good conversation. Actually, my last statement is this actually made me think about my music because it was like, why did I even start music? Like, you know, and it was like, it made me like really just dig into that bag of why do I even started creating art? And like, it's not visual, but like what is the purpose? You know, so it was kind of, I'm glad you invited me basically. So thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Everyone, plug your social media one more time. We'll start with you, James. Where can people find you?
It's James Mac MAK 95 at Instagram or James Machiavelli on YouTube. Machiavelli MAKABILLI.
All right. Check out James and check him out on Spotify too. And Aaron, where can people find you? And Julia?
I'm at Mindquill, MINDQUIL, all lowercase.
I'm fairy_toasty on Instagram.
Nice. And Jim?
I am the Walrus Life, on Instagram.
Fantastic. All right. Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you guys for coming on. It's been a great conversation. I learned a lot and a lot of different ways of looking at it. So I really had fun. And thank you, everyone, for contributing your cool ideas. All right. We'll sign off here. Adios.
Take care.